All right, we are going to start with the B card. I'm going to start at the doors right here. They're not bent, broke, or cracked, properly mounted. There's no holes. Also, we'll get this one too because it's in between. My turn signal, four-way flasher, marker lights, not bent, broke, or cracked, properly mounted, not missing any bolts. Proper color is amber. My mirror brackets, not bent, broke, or cracked, it's properly mounted, not missing any bolts. My mirror itself, not bent, broke, or cracked, properly mounted, no illegal stickers that would have struck my view, and it suggested to me, the driver. My window, not bent, broke, or cracked, properly mounted, no illegal stickers that would have struck my view. I'm going to come down here. My door opens and closes. And I'm going to go here. My weather stripping on both sides. Both sides. No abrasion, boulders, or cuts. It's not hanging. My door hinges. Not bent, broke, or cracked, properly mounted, not missing any bolts or screws. My door latch, right here. Not bent, broke, or cracked, properly mounted, not missing any screws. Then we can go down here, talk about the battery. My battery, it's not bent, broke, or cracked, it's properly mounted. There's no leaks, no corrosion, no exposed wires. My steps are not bent, broke, or cracked, they're properly mounted, not missing any bolts, can hold my weight, no debris or oil. My def tank, not bent, broke, or cracked, it's properly mounted. There's no leaks, there's no, not missing any bolts. My cap is tight, there should be a seal underneath. My steps, not bent, broke, or cracked, properly mounted. Not missing any bolts, can't hold my weight, no debris. My fuel tank, not bent, broke, or cracked, properly mounted. There's no leaks. My fuel straps, not bent, broke, or cracked, here we go. Properly mounted, not missing any bolts. The rubber underneath is no abrasion, boulders, or cuts. It prevents metal to metal contact. My gas cap, fuel cap. It's not bent, broke, or cracked, properly mounted, should have a safety chain. If we go here, my frame, we'll talk about that. It's not bent, broke, or cracked, properly mounted, not missing any bolts, and no illegal welds. Then if we look down, we'll see a drive shaft. It's not bent, broke, or cracked, properly mounted. The U joints, upper and lower, are not bent, broke, or cracked, and they are properly greased. And we can see our exhaust on the other side. It's not bent, broke, or cracked. It's properly mounted, not missing any bolts, and no excessive soot. So then we can come over here. There's a little bar back there. You can see it. It's called a torsion bar. Not bent, broke, or cracked, properly mounted, not missing any bolts. So then we'll jump back over here and we'll talk about the splash guard. My splash guard is not bent, broke, or cracked. It's properly mounted, not missing any bolts. And then right here, my leaf spring mount. Not bent, broke, or cracked. It's properly mounted. It's not missing any bolts. Then we can go down to our leaf spring itself. Leaf spring right there. Not bent, broke, or cracked. It's properly mounted. It's not shifted or scissoring. In between that, on the axle, inside, holding the holding the leaf spring down is the U bolts. There's two of them. My U bolts are not bent, broke, or cracked. They're properly mounted, not missing any bolts. Then we can go back a little bit. My shock absorber mount at the top and the bottom are present. They're not bent, broke, or cracked, not missing any bolts. My shock absorber itself, which is right here, not bent, broke, or cracked, properly mounted, not missing any. It's not leaking. My airbag mounts at the top and the bottom are not bent, broke, or cracked. They're properly mounted, not missing any bolts. My airbag itself, let's see, it's no abrasion, boulders, or cuts. It's not leaking. Then we'll talk about go back here, talk about our air brake hose. Can't see it back there, but it's right back there. There's no abrasion, boulders, or cuts. It's not leaking, not missing any clamps. My ABS wire not ripped, torn, or frayed, properly mounted, not missing any clamps. And we can see our brake chamber right there. I'm pointing right at it. Not bent, broke, or cracked. It's properly mounted. It's not missing any clamps or bolts. It's not leaking. And then right behind that is going to be our push rod slack adjuster. Every time there is a brake chamber, it's going to be a push rod slack adjuster right behind it. And the way we check that is my push rod slack adjuster. It's not bent, broke, or cracked, properly mounted, not missing any bolts. And if I were to check it, I would disengage the brakes, and I should not have more than 1 inch of play. From there, we go to our brake liners. We talk about those. Then we go to the brake drums. And then the inner, outer tire, inner, outer tire. No abrasion, bulges, or cuts. No leaks. And then we go from the inner, outer rim. It's not bent, broke, or cracked. It's properly mounted. No illegal wells. And then our tire face here. Tire face. No abrasion, bulges, or cuts. No leaks. The tire is wearing evenly. It can be recaps or retreads. Also, if I'm going to check the tread on this, it needs to be at least 430 seconds. The bud spacing in the middle, the dualies, is even. There's no debris stuck on the inside. And there should be at least 3 inches from rim to rim. Then we'll talk about our lug nuts. Not bent, broke, or cracked. Properly mounted. All are present. No excessive rust or shiny spots. My axle seal. Not bent, broke, or cracked. Properly mounted. Not missing any bolts. It's not leaking. Also, if I were to check it, it should be between the add and the fill. Then we'll talk about our mud flaps. The mud flaps. Not bent, broke, or cracked. It's properly mounted. Should be at least 8 inches off the ground. My DOT reflective tape is present. Proper color is red and white. And then back here on the lights, there's 4 functions. Turn signal, marker light, 4-way flasher, brake lights. And then of course the one in the middle is a reverse light. So we're doing B right now. So that's it. So let's go back here. All right, my emergency air hose right here, the red one. No abrasion, bulges, or cuts. No leaks. The fittings on both ends are present. They're not bent, broke, or cracked, and they're not leaking. My glad hands are not bent, broke, or cracked. They are properly mounted, not missing any screws or bolts. They're not leaking. The rubber on the inside is not dry rot, or we could say there's no abrasion, bulges, or cuts, and no leaks. So, same thing we did on this one, we do on our service air hose. These two, pre-trip those the same. Electric, service air. This one, emergency line service on this blue one. But this green one is the electric. My electric line, it's not ripped, torn, or frayed, no exposed wires. The pins on the inside are not bent, broke, or cracked. They're all properly mounted. There's no corrosion on the inside, on both ends. Over here too. Also my safety latches are present. And there's no corrosion, I said that, okay. So then we go on and we talk about my hoses and wires should not be touching any part of the catwalk. They should not be crossed. And there's enough slack to make turns. So then we come over here and talk about our apron on every card, A, B, or C. My apron at the top is not bent, broke, or cracked. It's properly mounted, properly greased. My skid plate, not bent, broke, or cracked. It's properly mounted, it's properly greased. There's no daylight between the apron and the skid plate. My pivot pin is not bent, broke, or cracked. It's properly mounted, not missing any cotter pins. My fifth wheel platform is not bent, broke, or cracked. It's properly mounted, not missing any mounting bolts. My release handle, not bent, broke, or cracked. It's properly mounted, and it's in the lock position. Then we come over here, we talk about our safety latch, which is right here. Safety latch, not bent, broke, or cracked. It's properly mounted, not missing any cotter pins. So then we come over here, we just talk real quick about our my kingpin. It's right in there. It's that bar that's sticking down. north and south. Not bent, broke, or cracked. It's properly mounted. Let's see. Not bent, broke, or cracked. It's properly mounted. It's properly greased. And right in front of the kingpin is the locking jaw. It locks around the kingpin. Not bent, broke, or cracked. Properly mounted. Not missing. Oh, let me start over. Kingpin. I'm sorry. Locking jaw. Not bent, broke, or cracked. It's properly mounted and properly greased. So I think we've mentioned almost everything on B, except for there needs to be enough space between the landing, the mud flap, and the landing gear. All right, that's B.